All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our effects section. Now, your effects are really going to help kind of pull things together, and it adds just that little sparkle to the sound. If you're using an acoustic piano, you might want to add some delay to it, depending on what kind of song you're on. If you're using an EP, you might need to add some tremolo to it, maybe some drive. If you're using an organ, you might want to add some dirt and some drive to the sound. A lot of times, we're going to add compression to the sound as well as reverb. And so we're going to use a variety of sounds right here just to give you just kind of an example of the way that you can affect your sound with these effects. And so taking a look at our effects section right here, as you can see, it's this whole section right here. And right now, nothing is turned on, nothing is lit. And remember, you've got your gray buttons here that turn things on. So if I want the reverb on, you got to turn it on. Same thing with the compressor. If you want to do your equalizer or amp simulator, your delay, and then your two multi-effects units. And so right now I've just got the Wurlitzer dialed up. That's going to be your EP2 Model 1, and by itself, without anything, it sounds like this. So you can see it sounds good, but it's definitely very dry. And so common with a Wurlitzer or any EP, we can add a tremolo effect. So if we come over here to our effects rack here, and effect number 1, you can see that we have a variety of selections. We've got different things like a wah, an auto pan, and we're going to do the tremolo. And so we're going to turn it on, and you want to make sure that piano is selected. If it's not, you have to double tap. Remember the same thing with all of these others. Same thing like with your keyboard zone. If you want to change the zone, you have to double tap to get it to move. And so same thing with these. Right now it's on synth. We want it to be on piano, so we'll double tap again. It's on organ, and one more time it's on piano. We want to make sure tremolo is selected, and so you would just tap the black button until tremolo is selected. And then finally we've got our rate and amount, and I've already dialed this in, and with the Wurlitzer it sounds like this. So you can see that it's got that nice tremolo effect to it, and that really adds a nice character to the sound. Now, the two parameters inside of the effects that you're going to be adjusting once you select the kind of effect is going to be the rate or the tempo, as well as the overall amount. And so if you come to the rate tempo right here, when you turn this, you can see the little red tick mark here moves, but when we turn it, you can see over here in our main screen that there's an adjustment. So right now it's a rate of 53 or 82, and so what that means is that you can kind of just think of that as like manual versus it being automatic, where it's slaved to an internal clock. If you look at this button right here, right underneath it says master clock. Now we can tap that. Actually, I think we have to press shift and tap it. Yeah. So we press shift and tap. Anytime you have something beneath a button like this, so like right here on the amp envelope, on load sound, keyboard track, all of these guys up under here, if you want to access these, you have to press shift and then press that button. So now we've got this slaved to the master clock, which is right here. And so I can set a new tempo. And as you can see, it's changing right here. Right now we're at 122. And now that we have a rate, whenever we turn this, you can see it's not at a rate anymore. It's set to a master clock subdivision. So we can either have it set to basically whole notes. You can hear how that kind of fades in and out. We can set it to half notes. We can set it to quarter notes. We can set it to eighth notes. You can also set the overall amount. If you turn it way up, you kind of get this pulsing effect. We can turn it down all the way, and you don't hear it. So you can kind of dial it in just a little bit. So that's kind of how the effects work, and that's really how it works for each one of these, both the Effect 1, Effect 2, and Delay. If we wanted to add something unique to this particular sound, say like a flange or a wah, we could go over to Effect 2 here, turn it on, make sure it's set to piano, we're going to set it to phase, and then we kind of got it dialed in, and it would sound like this. So you can see how that adds a new character to the overall sound. Now, as far as delay is concerned, you can use it on any source, your organ, your piano, or your synth. And what I tend to find is I use it a lot on the acoustic pianos, depending on what kind of song that we're in. So if we were doing Found in You, I would probably add some delay, and the same way that you turn on the effects, you do the same thing for the delay. So you can see your delay is right here. We'll turn it on. We'll make sure it's set to piano. If it's not, just double tap until it gets back there. And I've got it set to ping pong. Now the ping pong delay is basically a stereo delay, and it moves back and forth from the left channel to the right channel, and it just gives it a nice overall sound rather than it just being right here in the middle. So I usually have that turned on, and as you can see here, master clock is set. Now I always have it set to the master clock, and if I'm going to change the tempo of a song, I'll save that to a new program, and we'll talk about saving to programs in an upcoming video, but usually when I have the delay, it's always set to the master clock. And so you can see it's turned on right there. I've got a rate tempo as well as the amount. Now the rate tempo, as you can see here, is set to eighth notes with a D, and that D stands for dot. You can do eighth note, you can do an triplet eighths. I'm assuming this is kind of like a straight eighth, or rather a swung eighth, sorry. So you've got your dotted eighth, triplet eighth, swung eighth, and then a regular eighth. And so this is the way it would sound with a regular eighth, and then swung eighth, and then triplet, and then dotted. So we're going to set a new tempo. So that's about the tempo for Found in You, and I'm going to change this over to our acoustic piano. And so it would sound something like this. So you can hear how that really adds a nice dimension to the song, but when you are using delay, you've got to make sure that you're right on the click. If you're not, it'll definitely sound out, and if you're having trouble with the click, then I wouldn't even worry about using the delay. And so again, a lot of times we'll use a dotted eighth note delay. Sometimes we'll use the straight eighth note delay, depending on which song it is. And so I tend to just kind of move back and forth through that. Again, always set to the master clock, and I'll change that clock or that master tempo from song to song depending on if I need the delay or not. Now, the one nice thing is, since we do have these little gray buttons to turn things on and off, is after kind of that intro, when we go to the verse, I'll turn off the delay so that it doesn't get in the way. We'll come and just kind of make our chord changes, and then throughout the chorus we'll really drive through, and then when we come back to that little instrumental, I'll turn it back on so it sounds out, but then after that I kind of get rid of it. Now in addition to that, you know, we've got our two effects, our delay, and then finally we have our amp and equalizer, and the main thing that I'm going to use it for is this drive right here. So I'll turn it on and change back over to our EP, turn off the delay, and without it, here's this Wurlitzer without the drive. But then we turn it on, we'll make it really overwhelming. That's real gritty and dirty. And we can kind of turn it down, add a little delay. So you can hear that that's kind of like the song Alive a little bit, adding a little bit of delay. I'd kind of tweak that a little bit more, not make it so apparent, and maybe turn down that drive. But again, that can really add some nice character to the song. And this is very important to know how to do this, because you might get into a situation where you're playing to the track and the computer just dies. And when you do, you're going to have to cover some of these parts. And so that's happened to me on at least 3 different occasions where we've had to either kill the track or the computer has died during the song Alive, and you've got that very percussive kind of sound. So dialing up the Wurlitzer, adding some drive, a little bit of delay, some reverb and compression will definitely help you get through that kind of tune. So again, we've got our effect 1, effect 2, our delay, our amp, and equalizer. Now, a note on the EQ here, I usually don't really, modify that much. I kind of leave that to your sound engineer. Sometimes I might adjust it just a little bit depending on the sound when we're using an acoustic piano and our big synth patch. If one is getting in the way of the other, I might need to roll off some of the bass, kind of turn it down a little bit, maybe turn down the treble just a little bit, just depending, but I very rarely mess with that. Now finally, we've got our last 2 things, and it's going to be our compressor and our reverb. And so the compressor, you just turn it on, and that's going to compress the overall sound. And so right now, I've got our piano and our synth patch, and if I play, as you can see, we also had drive and delay on. And if I crank the compression and play light, you can see it's still loud, versus if I turn it down. So if we crank this up, so what that compressor does is it basically takes all of the loud sounds and kind of brings them down, and takes the soft sounds and brings them up, and it levels everything off. And so on, like the song Found in You during the chorus, I'd have that turned up, and I'm really driving on kind of that quarter note pulse, and that really helps the piano to stick out, which is great. But when we come to more subtle times, intimate times, I'm going to turn that compressor down so that I can be a little bit more expressive and have like the softs be softs and the louds be louds. And so that really compresses the entire thing, including your synth, your organ, your piano, whatever you're doing, it's going to compress all of it. And then finally, we've got our reverb, and it operates the same way. Just turn it on, and I usually leave it at Hall. And a lot of times, I'm going to have a little bit of reverb on every song. I'll usually leave it about in between 3 and 5, 3 and 6, somewhere around there. And then a lot of these Hillsong tunes, like What a Beautiful Name and such, sometimes you may need to just completely drown out the piano with that reverb. And so with it down on like between 3 and 4, it sounds like this. So now we'll drown it out, turn it up to about 9 or 10. So there you can see how all of those little things work together, and by drowning out that piano with the reverb, it really gives a nice sense of space. It kind of cuts off the attack of the piano. If you want to have more attack to a sound, turn down the reverb. If you want to have less attack to the sound, turn it up. And so in addition to that mod wheel, as you saw me working it, especially during those sections, I'm going to be doing the same thing with the reverb. As we start going into a new section, I'm going to turn it down. If we need more, I'll turn it up. And so that's the main portion of the effects. Again, you've got effects 1 and 2, delay, kind of your amp, as well as your compressor and your reverb. Your compressor and reverb, they cover the entire instrument. It's not just specific to one of these modules. Over on your effects, you can choose which module you want to be your source. Usually it's going to be your piano section. If you want to add some drive from your amp simulator to your organ, you would have to make sure that organ is selected. But overall, your effects really add a lot of character to the sound. Now that we've taken a look at the piano, synth, and effects, we'll take a brief look at the organ, and then we'll talk about how to save these. So let's go ahead and check that out.